Again, good morning to all of you, no? And we are now in the second part of our session of the Upskilling course on the Billings Ovulation method. So let's have this particular course, no? Session number 3, no? So session number 3 on the Billings Ovulation method, teacher training correspondence course. The correspondence course here is referring to the online, no? Kasi nasa online setup tayo, not on-site, no? Kaya we correspond via online. Your assessments are also via email, no? Messenger, so online, no? So let's begin. So again, welcome to our session 3 of the Upskilling course on the Billings Ovulation method. No? So take note of the following people: Doctors John and Evelyn Billings. We have Professors James Brown and Eric Odeblood, who made this study possible for all of us. Correlating the chart, the hormones, and the cervix. The chart is done by Doctors John and Evelyn Billings. Hormones, done by Professor James Brown. And the study of the cervix is coming from Professor Eric Odeblood. So the three, no, the chart, hormones, and the cervix are correlated in order for us to have an understanding of the female reproductive system in relation to what? In relation to fertility and infertility. So let me start, no? So estrogen and progesterone produced by the ovaries. That is why these two are known to be ovarian hormones. Change in amount continuously throughout the menstrual cycle. Okay? And then the healthy cervix responds to these hormones, producing mucus. And then by keeping an accurate chart, the woman can identify the phases of her cycle and her patterns of fertility and infertility. So these are the three: the chart of Doctors John and Evelyn Billings, the hormones, care of Professor Eric Odeblood, and the study of the cervix by Professor James Brown. These three are correlated in order for us to understand the 4 phases of the cycle and to identify accurately the patterns of fertility and infertility. So let's try to look at a normal fertile cycle. This was used as the demonstration chart for session 2, charting a normal fertile cycle. Let us take a closer look at this cycle. No? Look at the chart and you will see the different phases of the cycle. Menstruation, days 1 to 3. Okay, take note of that. Day 4 is not menstruation. Even though there are spotting or presence of bleed, but the sensation of dry is the one that makes day 4 no longer menstruation. The sensation of dry, that is very important. Basic infertile pattern starts on day 4 and it ends on day 8. And then fertility begins on day 9 until it develops into a wet ending with a slippery sensation. Fertility includes the first 3 days of the Luteal Phase. Fertility. So those are the days of fertile period. And the 4th day past the peak, or the 18th day, the 4th day of the luteal, is the beginning of the infertility. Peak day is on day 14. the last day of slippery sensation, which probably the day of ovulation. The luteal phase begin on day 15. Take note of that. Ang luteal ay hindi nagsisimula on the 18th day. Luteal phase begins on the 15th day, day 1 after the peak. Okay? But the infertility starts on the 4th day past the peak day. So luteal starts on day 15 and it ends on day 28. This same lady was part of one of the Billings ovulation method studies and collected urine throughout her cycle for hormone testing. So meaning the chart that you are looking right now is not an invento or invented chart, no? It is based on a what? On a particular woman who became part of the study of the Billings ovulation method. Let us now put those results under the chart and correlate them to the chart. So, anong ginagawa natin sa session na to? Kino-correlate natin yung chart, what is happening to the hormones based on the study of Professor James Brown, and what is happening to the cervix based on the studies conducted by Professor Eric Odeblood. Let's try to identify the hormones. During the days of menstruation, okay, and BIP, estrogen is at the baseline. Look at the estrogen, the one in blue. Mababa in Filipino. So the urine test reveals that during the days of the BIP, hormones estrogen is at the baseline. Sino nag-check ng urine? Si Professor James Brown. Professor James Brown, he was able to identify that during the days of menstruation, during the days of BIP, after menstruation, estrogen levels are at the baseline. As follicles begin their rapid growth phase, the estrogen level, as the follicle begin the rapid growth phase, the estrogen level rise, and this corresponds to the woman's changing pattern of fertility. So, ibig sabihin, the moment there is already a rapid growth of the follicle, estrogen begins to rise continuously. And it is happening during the changing pattern of fertility. That is why a BOM teacher could inform her clients, or the one attending in a pre-K na, that kung kayo ay merong mucus na nagbabago mula malagkit patungong mabasa at madulas, it means ang inyong estrogen ay tumataas, tumataas until it reaches the highest point. So the rising estrogen levels would be happening during the days of the changing pattern of discharge, starting from a sticky or damp opaque, developing into a wet clear, and ending into a slippery sensation. Okay, let's look. The peak day is the day of ovulation, but there are occasions that it can happen. There are occasions that it can happen either day 1 or day 2 after the peak day. Okay? The rise in estrogen reactivates the packets of Shaw. Okay? The rise in progesterone reactivates the packets of Shaw. I repeat, the rise in progesterone reactivates the packets of Shaw. The woman no longer has a slippery sensation. She can now look back and mark her peak by putting an X on the last day of the slippery sensation. It means the moment there will be an ovulation, there will be a formation of a corpus luteum, which I mentioned in the early part of our study. The corpus luteum after ovulation will release the hormone progesterone coming from the ovary. And that progesterone will activate the packets of Shaw and will make the packets of Shaw what? Very active in absorbing moisture, making now the sensation no longer wet, no longer slippery. That is why there will be a sensation of dry after the peak day, or there will be no more sensation of slipperiness after the peak day. I want you to focus on the yellow line, starting from day 1 until day 14. According to Professor James Brown, during the days of mens, during the days of the BIP, and during the days of the developing pattern of mucus, progesterone is at the baseline. Progesterone will only begin to rise the moment there would be an ovulation, because progesterone, it is coming from the packets of Shaw after ovulation. Clear? So looking at the yellow line, progesterone begins to rise at the day of ovulation. And it continues to rise until the luteal phase. Let us look at our peak day, the day 14, the day of ovulation, the day wherein progesterone begins to rise. Okay? So the luteal phase is the time between ovulation and the next menstrual bleeding. The normal length of a fertile cycle, okay, 11 to 16 days of luteal, no? In a normal length of a fertile cycle, the length of the luteal phase is 11 to 16 days. Progesterone rises on the day of ovulation, okay? And estrogen will suddenly drop during the day of ovulation and will begin to rise again, no? Maybe on the 3rd day or on the 4th day of the luteal phase. And both progesterone and estrogen will be elevated in the luteal phase. Progesterone and estrogen reach maximum values 7 days post-ovulation and fall prior to menstruation. What is the meaning of the last sentence? Progesterone and estrogen prior to menstruation, bago dumating ang menstruation, prior to menstruation, both of them will drop. Look at the yellow and the blue lines at the end, at day 28. At day 28, progesterone and estrogen will drop. The moment these two hormones drop at the same time, it means the luteal phase is what? Will end, and menstruation now will commence. Clear? So Professor James Brown was able to what? To correlate what is happening to the hormones in relation to the charting designed by Doctors John and Evelyn Billings. Okay, the day of the luteal phase, look, it begins on day 15, the day 1 of the luteal phase, and it ends on day 28, a total of 14 days of luteal. Is the luteal normal? Yes, because it is within the range. What is the range? 11 to 16 days. That is the normal length of a luteal phase in order for the cycle to be considered fertile. I repeat, in order for the cycle to be considered fertile, the length of the luteal phase must be within the normal length, and that is 11 to 16 days. And as the length of the luteal phase, no, will begin to what? To end. progesterone and estrogen now drop. Okay? And when these two ovarian hormones drop, luteal phase ends and menstruation commences. So take note of the hormones. Now, if we are clear with the hormones, let's have a repeat. Estrogen is low during the days of BIP. It begins to rise when mucus starts to appear, and it will continue to rise as mucus develops into wet, ending with a slippery sensation. The highest amount of estrogen, look at the blue line, is happening before the day of ovulation. So 13 has the highest amount of estrogen because 14 is the day of ovulation. By the studies conducted by Professor James Brown, it tells us that estrogen begins to rise the moment there is a mucus developing into a wet, ending with a slippery. But the highest amount of estrogen will take place the day before ovulation. 13 has the highest amount of estrogen because 14 is the day of ovulation. On the day of ovulation, estrogen will drop, but it will rise again. Either what? Either day 3, no, or day 4 of the luteal phase. It will rise again, and it will be elevated during the days of the luteal. What is happening to the progesterone? Progesterone is low during menstruation, during BIP, during the changing pattern of fertility or changing pattern of mucus. Progesterone begins to rise on the day of ovulation, and it will be elevated similar to estrogen during the luteal phase. But there will be a point in time that estrogen and progesterone will drop. The moment they drop, it is the end of the luteal and the beginning of the next cycle, the beginning of the menstruation. Is this clear? So if it is clear, we are now ending the studies of what Professor James Brown, correlating the two ovarian hormones with the chart presented to us by Doctors John and Evelyn Billings. Now let's go to Professor Eric Odeblad. We know what to look at the work of Professor Odeblad. What is happening in the cervix throughout this cycle? When are the different types of mucus will be present in the cycle? You know the 4 types of mucus. The G mucus, the one closing the cervix. The L mucus is the one identifying weak and abnormal sperm. The slippery mucus is the one for nourishment, no? And the P mucus is the one located on the top portion of the cervix. So let's try to study the chart in relation to the work of Professor Eric Odeblad. As the bleed diminishes, okay, as the bleed diminishes in Filipino, hanggang dumating ang paghihina ng pagdurugo o regla. As the bleed diminishes, the G-plug mucus is formed. Okay? So now, during the days of menstruation, the cervix is open. No G mucus or guard mucus, the one closing the cervix. But the G mucus begins to appear the moment the bleeding diminishes. So the G-plug mucus begins to appear day 4. What is day 4? Dry spotting. If it is dry, the cervix is already closed by the mucus plug or the G mucus. Day 3, day 2, day 1, no G mucus. Cervix is completely open. So G mucus starts to appear on the 4th day of the cycle. And the description of the 4th day is what? dry spotting, the beginning of the BIP. During the BIP, the cervix will be occluded with the thick plug of the G mucus. Thick plug of G mucus or mucus plug. So the guard mucus, you have the arrow there. So from days 4 until day 8, the cervix is completely closed by the G plug mucus according to Professor Eric Odeblad. Sperms are kept out of the cervix and have a very short life. Sperm are kept out of the cervix and have a very short life. Now, what happens on day 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 during the days of the changing pattern of discharge or fertility? Changing developing pattern. Slippery sensation noted. And that is the most important. Slippery sensation indicates the egg is already mature and any moment there will be an ovulation. The G mucus diminishes the moment there is already an appearance of a mucus. Day 9, G mucus suddenly begins to what? To decrease in terms of amount. No? The cervix now will be what? Will start to open. At the beginning of the fertile phase, there is an increase in the P mucus. Attention, my dear teachers of the BOM. The first mucus that will appear, or the first mucus that the cervix will what? Will start to make would be the P mucus, no? The P mucus. That is the first mucus that will be produced by the first mucus that the cervix will produce. The P mucus now will liquefy the G plug. The G plug is the one. Okay, I will, please look at me at the camera. This is the G mucus, my fist. The P mucus now will liquefy the G. In Filipino, tutunawin. Kaya unang ginawa ang P mucus kasi ang P mucus ang tutunaw doon sa impenetrable G mucus. Tutunawin niya. Kapag natunaw niya ang G mucus, the G mucus now will be dislodged, mahuhulog, at ito ay babagsak sa underwear ng isang babae. At ang babae mararamdaman niya may bumagsak sa kanyang panty, sa kanyang underwear. Bakit natanggal ang G mucus? How come the G mucus was dislodged out of the cervix? Because the P mucus liquefies the G. Clear po yun. Okay? The P mucus liquefies the G mucus and mixed with the L mucus leaves the cervix. Okay? So the L mucus now will immediately appear after the P. And the L mucus will be present. Take note, ha? It will be present on day 9 until day 14. How come the L mucus is always present from the beginning of the mucus until it ends? Because the L mucus is the one that will screen the sperm entering the cervix. The L mucus is the one who is what? Responsible for identifying weak and defective sperm. The screening committee must be available from the beginning of the mucus appearance until it ends. I want you to focus again with the P. The moment the P starts to appear on day 9, the moment the P was able to liquefy the G mucus, the P mucus will disappear. Look at the dotted lines. The dotted line signifies that it will suddenly or gradually disappear because the only role of the P mucus is to what? Is to liquefy the G mucus. To liquefy. But after liquefying the G mucus, the P mucus now will be decreasing in terms of amount. Gradually, it will disappear. But at the same time, on day 9, L mucus will appear until the entire mucus production. L mucus continues to be produced throughout the fertile phase, which I already mentioned to you the reason behind. Look at the G mucus, it is already dotted line. The moment there is already a mucus, no? There's already the presence of the mucus, which starts on day 9. Look at day 9. G mucus dotted line. G mucus starts to disappear. Cervix is now open. Very soon after the slippery mucus is produced, it continues throughout the fertile phase, no? So slippery mucus also appear, no? The slippery mucus starts to appear on day 9 and it continues throughout the fertile phase. Why? Because the slippery mucus is the one that will nourish the sperm. That is why the slippery mucus must always be available from beginning and throughout the fertile phase, throughout the changing pattern of discharge, similar to the L mucus. As ovulation approaches, the P mucus production increases. Look, the moment the mucus becomes slippery, P mucus begins to appear again. So, for example, day 1, opaque, sticky. P mucus is abundant because P mucus will liquefy the G mucus. After the P mucus liquefies the G, it will gradually disappear. Wet, cloudy, no P. Wet, cloudy, no P. Wet, clear, no P. Slippery, P mucus begins to appear again. As ovulation approaches, the P mucus production increases, liquefying the L and the S mucus, leaving the woman feeling very lucrative at the vulva. The reason behind there is what? A sensation of slipperiness at the vulva because of the intervention of the P mucus, as the P mucus begins to appear again as ovulation approaches, no? So possibly without any visible sign of mucus. Sometimes the woman cannot see the mucus, but the woman can totally feel the slippery sensation at the vulva. Look at the P, L, and S. These 3 types of cervical mucus studied by Professor Eric Odeblad is now being what? Correlated to the chart of Doctors John and Evelyn Billings, days 9 to 14. So we are trying to what? To look at the studies of Eric Odeblad and we apply it to the works of what? Dr. John and Evelyn Billings, and that is the Billings chart. Day 14, you notice that there is a flashing there. Maybe that is the peak day, no? 3 requirements of a peak day. Okay, look at this, huh? Number 1, changing developing pattern. In order for you to reach the peak day, there should be a changing developing pattern. What is the meaning of that? It means it starts with a cloudy, damp, opaque appearance. Opaque appearance with a damp sensation or a sticky sensation. It will become wet and then it will become slippery. I repeat, the changing pattern. It starts with a sticky or damp opaque sensation, then it will become wet sensation, and then leading or ending with a slippery sensation. That is the meaning of a changing pattern. Number 2 requirement, the end of mucus must always be slippery. And you know the reason. Let me repeat. Slippery mucus indicates that the egg is already mature and any moment there will be an ovulation. Number 3, you will able to recognize the peak because it has a distinct change to no longer lubricative or slippery. It means The following day or the next day, you are no longer slippery, you are no longer wet. Clear? So day 15 is dry. That is the meaning of number 3 in the 3 requirements of the peak day. 3 requirements of a peak day. Number 3 says there is a change. Day 15, there is a change. It is no longer slippery. It is no longer wet. It means day 14 is the last day of the slippery sensation, and absolutely it is the peak day. Can a peak be identified? Description changing from day to day. 9 to 14, there is a changing of mucus day to day, from damp to wet to slippery. Check. Slippery sensation is the mucus ending with a slippery sensation. Yes, check. Next, is there a change after slippery? What happens? Day 15, no longer slippery. Day 15, no longer wet. Change to no longer lubricative. Lubricative is a particular word in Australia which means slippery. No longer slippery in day 15. Check. So we can identify the peak, and the peak day is day 14. Okay, is there a peak? Yes. And where is the peak? Last day of slippery sensation. Recognized on the day of change. And 14 is the peak day because 15 is the day of change. No longer wet, no longer lubricative, no longer wet. Okay? On day 15, G mucus begins to appear. We call it the G plus. No? Before mucus, we call it G minus. After mucus production leading to peak, the mucus plug, we name it as the G plus mucus. G plus mucus begins on day 1 after the peak day, but not too much. It begins to appear, but not totally closing the cervix. Plug of G mucus begins to form day 1 after the peak. It begins to form on the first day of the luteal phase. Okay, peak and ovulation. Ovulation can happen most of the time during the peak day, but there are occasions that it can happen on day 1 past the peak or day 2 past the peak. Okay, look at the G plus mucus. Okay, the G plus mucus, dotted line. It begins to appear on day 15. In day 16, it will increase. In day 17, it will continuously increase, but the cervix is still open. That is why the G plus is a dotted line from 15 going to what? Going to 17. Okay? Cervix is still partially open on days 15, 16, 17 because the G plus mucus is not yet what? Completely done in closing the cervix. No? So take note. And then what will happen now? Okay, what will happen? So let's continue. PLNS mucus production starts to decrease during the days of what? 1, 2, 3 after the peak day. No? Dotted lines na rin sila. Meaning, these 3 mucus, PLS, are now decreasing in terms of amount. Progesterone activates the packets of Shaw. And what will be the role of the packets of Shaw? To absorb all moisture, making all sensation totally dry or no longer lubricative. Mucus is dried, natutuyo by the packets of Shaw after the peak day. Okay? And what happens now to the G plus mucus? The G plus mucus will now predominantly what? Fully active on the fourth day, past the peak day. Look at the straight line. No more dotted lines. Dotted lines on day 15, day 16, day 17. On day 18, the G plus mucus completely closes the cervix, and the G plus mucus continues to appear throughout the luteal phase. Okay? By the beginning of the fourth day past the peak, the cervix will be blocked by the thick plug of G mucus, G plus, and it will be dislodged. Matatanggal lang yung G plus mucus the moment there is already menstruation. Okay? So, this is what we call the correlation of the studies of Professor Eric Odeblad in relation to the chart developed by Doctors John and Evelyn Billings. Now, let us put it all together in one slide. Okay, let's try to look. The chart of Doctors John and Evelyn Billings. The one below are the two ovarian hormones presented to us by Professor James Brown. And then at the middle, okay, we will have now the works of Professor Eric Odeblad. Menstruation, day 1 to day 3. Infertility, BIP, begins on day 4 to day 8. During the days of infertility, estrogen, progesterone at the baseline. The G-plug mucus completely closed the cervix during the days of BIP. G minus begins to appear on day 4, dry spotting until day 8, the last day of the BIP. Baseline for estradiol or estrogen. During the days of mucus production starting from day 9, leading to a developing pattern ending with the peak day, estrogen is what? Estrogen is rising. Look at the estrogen, the one below. The G minus mucus starts to disappear during the days of mucus. That's why it is dotted line. The first mucus to appear is P. What is the role of the P mucus? To liquefy the G so that the G mucus during the BIP will be dislodged, will be released. It will drop at mararamdaman ng babae sa kanyang panty or underwear. After the P mucus liquefies the G, the P mucus starts to disappear gradually. And it will reappear again the moment the mucus starts to become slippery. But the L mucus will be what? Available at the beginning of the mucus until what? Until the end of the mucus secretion, until it ends with the slippery sensation, including the S mucus. How come L and S are predominantly available from 9 until what? Until 14. Because L is for screening, S is for what? For nutrition, no? It will nourish the sperm upon entering the cervix. And now look at the rising estrogen from day 9 going to the peak day. The highest amount of estrogen is on the day before ovulation. Okay? The peak day is the last day of the slippery sensation. And most of the time, it is the day of ovulation. On the day of ovulation, estrogen drops. On the day of ovulation, progesterone rise, according to Professor James Brown. Estrogen during the day of ovulation drops, and it will rise again, either on the 3rd or the 4th day of the luteal, and it will be elevated on the luteal phase. Progesterone is at the baseline from menstruation to BIP to the changing pattern of fertility. It will only begins to rise at the day of ovulation. And look at our, what we call this, our estrogen and progesterone. During the luteal phase, both will be elevated, but gradually it will drop. The moment it drops, these two ovarian hormones, that is the end of the luteal and the beginning of the menstruation, the beginning of the new cycle. Let's continue. The moment luteal phase starts to appear, after the peak day, day 15, the beginning of the luteal, G plus mucus now will appear, but not in large amount. In small amount, it will appear, gradually closing the cervix in 3 days. That is why look at the G plus mucus, dotted line in days 15, 16, 17. And during the days of infertility, 4th day past the peak day, or on the 4th day of the luteal, what happens would be what? Progesterone and estrogen are elevated and it will gradually drop. And during days 18, 19, 20 until 28, the G plus mucus will be in its highest amount, closing the cervix throughout the remaining days of the luteal. The G plus mucus will only disappear the moment menstruation commences. Okay? On top is the chart based on doctors John and Evelyn Billings. The one in the middle is the work of Professor Eric Odeblad. What is happening to the mucus from the different phases of the cycle? The last one, the one at the bottom, the work of Professor Eric Odeblad. The one at the middle, I repeat, the one on top is the work of Doctors John and Evelyn Billings, the 4 phases of the cycle, the chart. The one at the middle is the one studied by Professor Eric Odeblad. What is happening to the 4 types of mucus during the different phases of the cycle? The one below is coming from Professor James Brown. What is happening to estrogen and progesterone during the different phases of the cycle? So during the luteal, estradiol and progesterone at high levels, and it will gradually drop as it approaches to menstruation. So in session 2, you look at the 4 simple rules of the Billings ovulation method. You know all the rules. Let us see where they are applied throughout this cycle. So menstruation is EDR1, avoid intercourse during the days of bleeding. EDR2, during the days of the BIP, alternate evenings are available for intercourse. During the days of what? Mucus production, EDR3, okay? If there is a peak, okay, it includes day 1, day 2, and day 3 of the luteal phase, okay? That is the peak day. And the peak rule starts from where? Tingnan nyo ha. The peak rule starts on day 18. Day 18. 1, 2, 3 is part of the EDR3. From 9 until 17, that is EDR3. And peak rule starts on the, is it purple or violet? No? On day 18 to day 28. Clear? So let's continue. The length of the cycle is determined by the BIP, no? And you are well versed on this one. A short cycle. A short cycle, let me repeat, this is a short cycle. A short cycle is a condition wherein menstruation and mucus are intertwined. Look at day 4, wet spotting. Look at day 5, bleeding with slippery mucus. Day 6, bleeding with slippery sensation. And day 7, that is the peak day. Remember, there is no bleeding during the day of ovulation, no bleeding. This is a short cycle wherein bleeding intertwined with the mucus production. Okay? EDR1, wait, no intercourse, no genital contact. EDR3 starts on day 5, the beginning of the mucus, until peak day, including 1, 2, 3, including the 1, 2, 3, which is day 8, day 9, day 10. That is part. The peak rule begins on the 4th day past the peak day. If the BIP would be very long, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, no? So what happens now would be this one. Look at the days of the BIP. Anybody? Switch on your microphone. Can you please tell me where it already appeared. Sorry, I click it. No, the BIP starts on day 5. Sorry, no? Day 5. Menstruation, day 1 to day 4. EDR1. Day 5 until day 18, alternate evenings, no? A long days of BIP. And then you have now the appearance of the mucus. The moment mucus appears, early day rule number 3, EDR3. Avoid intercourse during the days of discharge or bleeding, which interrupts the basic infertile pattern. If there is a peak, allow 3 days of the luteal. On the 4th day, apply the peak rule. So where is the EDR3? From day 19 all the way to 23, 24, 25. Okay? Peak rule, it's written. Intercourse is available from the beginning of the 4th day past the peak day. When ovulation is delayed, okay, irregular pattern, no? Okay, are you still there? Okay, so when ovulation is delayed, okay, let me check the time. Okay, it's 11:30, no? I'll discuss when ovulation is delayed in our next session, no? This will be for the breastfeeding and etc., no? So let me go back. So we'll end with this one, no? So this last session for today is all about this one. Let me go back. It is all about the correlation of the works of Doctors John Evelyn Billings together with Professor James Brown and Eric Odeblad. The additional slides are simply a review of the rules of the Billings ovulation method. So then I would like to conclude the one on top, the chart of Doctors John and Evelyn Billings, the different phases of the cycles, is correlated with what is happening to the cervix in terms of the production of mucus, and the one below, what is happening to the ovarian hormones, estradiol and progesterone during the different phases of the cycle. I will stop now the sharing. Is this clear to all? No? To summarize, no? Let me check. Men's no G mucus. BIP, there is a G mucus. We call it the G minus. The moment mucus starts to appear, G minus disappear. What is the first mucus? P. It will liquefy the G. Then there will be an L, there will be an S mucus until X. The P mucus is the first mucus that will be produced. After liquefying the G, the P mucus will disappear, and the P mucus will return when mucus starts to become slippery. After the peak, P, L, and S will start to disappear. After the peak, the G plus will gradually appear, and the G plus will totally close the cervix on the 4th day of past the peak day. when it comes to the hormones, during the BIP, low estrogen. Estrogen begins to rise during the days of the developing pattern, and the highest amount of estrogen is happening the day before ovulation. On the day of ovulation, estrogen drops, and it will rise again on the third or the fourth day of the luteal. Progesterone is low during mens, during BIP, during the changing pattern of discharge. It will begin to rise on the day of ovulation, and both estrogen and progesterone will be elevated during the luteal. They will both gradually drop, and when they drop, that is the end of the luteal and the beginning of the menstruation. 3 studies: the Billings ovulation method, the chart, the hormones by Professor James Brown, and the 4 types of mucus by Eric Odeblad. And that is the last session for today regarding the first day of the upskilling course of the Billings ovulation method. Okay, any feedback from the class? Any questions? Is it clear? Can I hear a response before we conclude our day today? Thank you, Ma'am Florence from Davao. Si Tita Cecil, iniintay ang ating Davao, no? Teacher training course in the near future. Clear po. Thank you, Eileen. So, with that, let's have the photo. Tama ba, Tita Ces? Okay. If you can switch on your, call this your camera, no?
Camera.
Para kay Bishop Mercado. Okay. So, but if you don't have a camera, no problem. Okay, let's have. So switch on your camera. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you to all, and see you next Saturday for our next upskilling course on the Billings method. No, I hope natuto po ang lahat today.